In today's video, I'll show you how to build your own WordPress website in under 1 hour. And we are going to be building this website with the free version of Neve, which is one of the fastest and most powerful WordPress themes on the market with over 300,000 active installs. You'll only need to purchase a domain and hosting plan, but I'll show you exactly how to receive a massive discount from Bluehost. So without any further ado, let's start building our website. Let's go to bluehost.com to purchase our domain and hosting plan. And if you use our affiliate link, which you can find in the description, you'll get access to this offer where you can get a hosting plan for as low as $275 a month. And with this offer, you can also get a free domain, free SSL, one-click WordPress installs, and 24/7 support. So to begin, let's click on the Get Started Now button. So here we can select from one of 3 different hosting plans. We have Basic, Plus, and Choice Plus. We can see the discounted pricing for each of them below. On the left-hand side, we can see a list of features, so we can see exactly what we're getting for each plan. The basic plan seems to be good enough as we're getting one website, 10 gigs of space, unmetered bandwidth, free SSL, and we can also get 5 email accounts. And that will be good enough for the website that we are going to be creating, so I'll click on Select at the bottom. And now on this page, we'll need to enter the domain name that we want to purchase. If you have already thought of a domain name, you can just enter it here. You can also choose a domain extension from this list, but .com is by far the most popular, so we'll use .com. And if you already own a domain, you can enter it here. So under Create Domain, I'll just go ahead and enter dawnyogaclasses.com. And it's okay if you type in the extension in the field as well, especially if that's the one that you want to use. We don't want to use any other extension, so we'll click on Next. So now on this banner, we can see that our domain is available, so we are good to go. I'm already signed in with Google, but if you're not, you can click on this button to sign in. At the bottom, you'll have to enter your account information, so I'll do this off screen in a second. If we scroll down, we can see the package information section. So this is letting us know that we are going to be paying $275 a month for 12 months, and the total hosting cost will be $33. We're getting a free domain name, and we're also getting free SSL. So we can see that here. At the bottom, we have package extras, and the first one is domain privacy protection. That's $11.88 a year. And basically, this service just hides your contact information from public domain records. So I'm going to uncheck this, and it's going to ask if I am sure. And you can keep it on if you want to, but I'm going to turn it off since I won't need it for this demonstration. We don't need any other packages, so I'll uncheck the last 2. And that keeps our total cost at $33. So next, you'll need to provide your payment information. And once you're done with that, you can scroll down to decide whether you'd like to receive phone communication. Check this box if you don't want to receive it. And then you'll need to accept the terms and then click on Submit. So I'll enter all of my information off screen. And once the payment has finished processing, we'll get a receipt that shows exactly what we paid for. And at this point, we are done. All we need to do is click on this Create Password button at the top. So on this page, we have our domain in the field above. We'll just need to enter a password, accept the terms, then click on Create Account. And on the next page, click Create Your Website. Let's skip this step. What is the primary purpose of your website? I'll say business. For the type, we can say health. Okay, and who are we creating this site for? Let's say myself. We can skip the next step. And now they're offering us some themes that we are going to configure later on in WordPress. So we can also skip this step. And once the installation is complete, we can click on the Login to WordPress button. Okay, so we are now logged into the backend of our WordPress website, and we need to take care of a few things right away. So this installation came with a lot of bloatware that we need to remove. So I'll just go ahead and hover over plugins and click on Installed Plugins to the right of it. And that should take us to our plugins page. And by the way, plugins are like apps on your WordPress website. So they basically extend the functionality of your website. So we just want to check all of the items that are highlighted in blue. And these are the plugins that were installed on our website automatically. So we basically want to decide exactly what we install. And now I'll go over to the top under bulk actions. I'll click on deactivate and apply. And that's going to deactivate all of the plugins that we checked. So now we can check the box next to plugin. And that selects all plugins. Now let's go to bulk actions, then delete, then click on apply, click on OK, and that will delete all of the plugins on our website. Okay, so since we are done with that, I will go back to the dashboard by clicking on dashboard on the left-hand side. And if we look at the top, we can see that this domain does not match the one that we purchased. So we are going to go to Bluehost to correct this. I'll just pin this tab as well. And now let's click on My Sites on the left-hand side. And on this page, we can see our domain, donyogaclasses.com. Let's click on Manage Site. On this page, we'll need to click on Settings at the top. And we'll see this site URL field. And we just need to add our domain to this field. So I'll just type in donyogaclasses.com. And once that's done, we can just go ahead and enter the same thing in the field at the bottom, or we could have just clicked on this checkbox at the top. Let's save the updates. And once it's done, we can click on the login to WordPress button, since I'm sure this would log us out. Okay, so now we can see the correct URL in the address bar, and I'll just go ahead and close the previous tab. And we can see that we still have a connection that is not secure. So we need to go back to Bluehost, and if we click on security, we can go ahead and enable our SSL certificate. So I'm going to turn on Let's Encrypt, and we'll just need to wait for the process to finish. Once it's done, we'll see that HTTPS is turned on, and we can go back to our website now. And if we go ahead and refresh this page, we'll get logged out of the website, but we'll see the padlock to indicate that our site is now secure. So we can just go ahead and enter our login information. But the easiest way is to go back to Bluehost. So I'm going to click on the Bluehost tab, and I will click on Login to WordPress at the top. So that's an easier way to log in if you have not saved your credentials. So we have now fixed our URL and we've made our site secure. And then we can click on Welcome to visit our site. So this is what it looks like right now, but we'll change that in a second. Let's go back to our dashboard. From here, we just want to go to Settings. And we're in our general settings. Let's change our site title from welcome to the name of our site. I'll type in Dawn Yoga Studio. We can also change the tagline. So I'll remove this and I'll type in something like yoga is our way of life. Okay. And we don't want to touch the next two fields. So we just want to leave these two fields alone. If you edit this, you could potentially break your website. Now, the administration email address can also be changed if you want to. It's set to your default Bluehost account email address. If you want anyone to be able to register on your website, you can check the next field. I'll leave it unchecked. You can also choose what new user roles will be from this list. And next, we can select a language from this list. We have access to a number of different languages. And then we can move on to choose our time zone. So just select one from this list. I'll select UTC-4. You can change your date and time formats. And right under, you can choose what day your week starts on. So once you're done with that, click on Save Changes. Now, next, we want to go to the Permalinks tab on the left-hand side. So I'll click on Permalinks. And to the right of that, I'll click on Post Name so that we get this sort of URL structure. In a nutshell, it's easier to understand versus the default one, and it's better for SEO. Now we can go to Appearance, then Themes. A theme basically dictates how your website looks. We have 4 themes installed by default, but we can click on Add New to add a different one. So here we have a number of different themes to choose from, but today we'll go ahead and install Neve as it's one of the best WordPress themes around. Once it's done installing, you can click on Activate. And on this page, click on Try one of our ready-to-use starter sites. And on the next page, we just want to click on Install and Activate, and we just need to wait for this to install. And once it's done, we'll have access to a number of beautiful starter sites from Neve. So you can go through this list to choose a starter site with a layout that fits what you want to build. You can always filter by category at the top. And in the top right-hand corner, we have a menu that lets us filter by page builder as well. There are both Gutenberg and Elementor starter sites, but the Elementor starter sites available are not free. So you'll need the Pro version of Neve to get access to the Elementor version of these starter sites. So you can always go ahead and preview each of these pages to see if they meet your expectations. So for example, if I go to business, I can scroll down and click on this one. If I preview it, I can scroll and go through each of the pages to see if I like the layout, and then I can make a decision based on that. So now we can go ahead and choose a free Gutenberg starter site to use for our yoga website. There's a yoga one available, but we can use this fitness one instead. So we can just scroll down to take a look at the layout. I think that's fine, so we'll click on Import at the bottom. Here we can choose exactly what we want to import. We want to import content, the customizer options, and widgets. We can also see the plugins that will be installed. I'll click import entire site, and we just need to wait until this process finishes. So this process should not take more than about 2 minutes, but I'll speed up this part. Okay, so once it's done, we can click on View Website, and that should take us to our page. So basically, all you'll need to do is replace this content with yours, and I'll show you exactly how to do this. So the first thing I'm going to do is click on Customize at the top. And once we are in the customizer, the first thing I'm going to do is edit the header. So I'm going to click on the Header tab. And let's start by changing our logo. And here under Display, we can choose how our logo's icon will be displayed in relation to the site title. So we have 4 different options. And I'll select the first one to have the icon by itself. Now let's click at the bottom to change the logo. So we can either click on Upload Files to upload our logo, or we can simply drag it from our computer to the media library. So I'll just go ahead and drag this one over here, and I'll click on Select and Crop at the bottom, and let's skip cropping. Okay, so we can now see it in the header at the top, but it's too small. Let's change the size. We'll make it 150 on desktop. And by the way, I'll show you how to create your own logo at the end of this video. Now, we can change this size for different devices by going into responsive mode. So we can change tablet from 64 to about 100. And for mobile, we can make it about 80. Okay, so that should be fine. And I'm also going to turn off Show Site Title. So let's go ahead and change our view back to desktop. Let's also scroll down to select a site icon. And this is basically the small icon we can see in the tab. So I'll just drag one from my computer. We'll use this one. And once it's done loading, we'll click select. Let's skip cropping. So we can see a preview of the icon over here. And we can also see it at the top in the tab. And there we can see our site name and tagline. We also have some advanced spacing and alignment options in the layout tab. And if we go to the Style tab, we'll have an option to change the site title's text color. So I'll go back and I'll click on Change Header Color. And we could have also clicked on this settings icon in the header row. We have one option here, which is Layout, and we can use this to change the width of our header. Now let's go to the Style tab. And in here, we can change the row height across different devices, and we can also change the border width. We also have a border color option. We can click on this globe icon to access the global colors, or we can use the color picker to select a custom color. Now, if we click on this settings icon, we'll be able to enter a hex code in this field to get a specific color. You can also click on Clear to remove your color selection. Let's reset these changes by clicking on the reset buttons. And we'll just get the border color back. It was a light gray. And you can also choose your text color and row background color using the same method. Now let's go back. And let's take a look at the structure of the header builder for a second. We have 3 rows and each one has its own settings. You can build your header using components. And if we go back, we can see this section which says available components. And components can be moved between rows. You'll just need to drag them to your desired position. And you can simply drag one from the left from the available components section directly onto the header. And you can drag as many as you can fit onto the header. You can also rearrange them however you want to. And if you don't want to build your own header from scratch, you have the option to use a header preset. Just click on a preset from this list and the header will be built for you according to that layout. Okay, so I'll just go back to my previous layout. Let's remove this button. All right, so that's good. You can access individual settings for each component by clicking on its gear icon. So these are the settings for the logo and site identity component. Let's check out the primary menu. We can see it up here at the top. And let's click on primary menu on the left. Again, under primary menu, click edit menu. And now we can see the menu options. Now we can start editing this. So I'll click on this drop down and under navigation label, I'll rename the gym to Our Studio. All right, that's good. So let's go back. And now we can rename groups to classes. Okay, so now I can move on to the next one, which is single group. And instead of renaming this, I'm going to remove it instead. So I'll click on remove at the bottom and that should be good for this one. Now, I'll show you guys how you can rearrange menu items. So click on reorder and you'll see a bunch of arrows that indicates the direction in which you can move an item. So if you click up, the item moves up. If you click down, it moves down. Let's move classes back down. And if you click on the left arrow next to an item, you can make it a child of the item it's under. So if we look at our menu at the top, under Studio, we now have classes. So that's basically how you create a submenu. Now we can click on Done at the bottom. If you click on Add Items, you'll be able to add different items to your menu. For example, I'll click on Sample Page to add it. We can now see it here on the left, and we can do the same for posts, categories, or tags, for example. So I'll just remove this, and now we can go back. So I'll click on the back button, and then we can go ahead and customize the footer. So I'll click on Footer, and the footer builder works just like the header builder, and they just have different components. We can see two different components in our screen currently. We have a copyright component that can only be edited in the Pro version of Neve. I'll leave a link in the description so you can check it out. We're using the footer's bottom row, which we can see here. So we can edit this by clicking on the gear icon. This is how we can edit the layout. So we can select the number of columns we want in the footer. So if I select 3, we'll see that we now have 3 different columns in the footer. We can also drag to rearrange footer components. Your columns layout can also be selected from this list. So for example, the first column in this one is larger than the other 2. And we also have a vertical alignment option for the footer component. To add a new component, we can simply click directly on the column. So here we have a menu with 4 different components. So if I click on footer 1, we can now see the layout options for the column on the left-hand side. And if I click on the gear icon on the component, we can now see the component's settings. So we have some content in this component. It's basically a heading and a paragraph. We can see it here in the footer, and we can edit it here in this text editor. So you can type whatever you want in there if you want to keep this component. If you want to remove it, all you would need to do is click on the options icon at the top and click Remove Legacy Widget. And now we can add any block to our footer. So as an example, I'll add this image block to the footer. I'll click on Select. And now we have our image in the footer. So I'll remove it, and I think we can keep the default footer. So let's remove the component. I'll click on the X on the component. Now let's change our footer color. So I'll click on this gear icon on the row, and in Style, I'll go down to Row Background, and I'll change the background color to the primary accent. So now it's red. And now we can go back to customize our theme's colors and background. So let's go back again, click on colors and background, and right away we can see our global colors. We have 3 different color palettes. We have a base, a dark mode, and rose. So we also have the palette colors listed at the bottom. So our primary accent is red, and if we change it to a color like green, for example, every page element that's red will turn green. So I'll use a hex code for a color that I have already picked out. I'll simply highlight the hex code in the field, and I'll replace it with one that I have already copied. I think that looks good, so let's change the secondary accent now. So I'll go back and click on the secondary accent color, and I'm just copying my hex code off screen to replace the one that we have in this field. Okay, so that's good for now. Let's change our site background color. So I'll copy the hex code, and I'll go to the site background color, and I'll click on settings, and I'll paste it to replace this one. Alright, so it's basically an off-white color, and I won't be replacing any other palette color, so I think we're good here for now. We can see all of the colors that we've changed, the primary accent, secondary accent, and the site background. And now we can move on to typography. We'll start with general, and we're editing the body text, which is basically this text here, our paragraph text, and the font family is Poppins. We can change this to Hebo. So now we can click on it. And you can also add different font variants if you want to. They're basically different font thicknesses. There's also a transform option. We can use this to capitalize the font, or maybe make it lowercase or uppercase. I'll change that back to none. We can also select the weight, which is how thick the font is. And that's one of the variations that we mentioned previously. So I'll change it back to 400. We can also change the font size. Right now it's set to 16, but if you want to, you can increase it. And just watch out for the reset button. So I'll change this back to 16. And by the way, you can always change your font across multiple devices. So here's tablet and mobile. So you can always set a different font size for each device. Line height is basically the lines between your lines of text, and that can also be adjusted in this field. So let's set the line height at 2, and you can also adjust your letter spacing if you want to. And the final option on this list is fallback font, and that's basically the font or group of fonts that will be used if your selected font cannot be loaded. Okay, so we are done with this section, and if we go back, we can now click on headings. So we have different headings on this site. Here's an H1. This is an H2. So for H1, for example, I'll click on the tab. And here we have the same set of typography settings. So you can always go ahead and make your changes here if you want to. And you can do the same for all of the other headings if you need to make changes. Let's go back. And finally, we have the blog options, and you can use this to make changes to the blog's typography. And the settings are the same, so you should not have any trouble. Now let's go all the way back to the main menu, and we can move to buttons. Our first option is a spacing option, that's padding. And if we take a look at the button on the screen, we can see some space on the inside, so that's padding. It's actually 40 pixels. We can change this to 80 so you can see what it does. And now we have a bigger space, which is 80 pixels. And we can always do the same for the other sides. Now at the bottom, we have a tab to customize the primary button. Right now, the style is set to fill, and we have a border radius option at the bottom. You can use this to customize the roundness of your button. So as the values are linked, if I type in 50, we'll get a round primary button, which we can see here. And the secondary button is still a square. You can also unlink it to add different values to each side. So if I make the top left 0, then we'll see this pointy edge at the top. I'll also make the left bottom straight as an example. And if you want to make it into a square again, all you would need to do is make all of the values 0. So I'll just go ahead and do that. You can either link it, or you could do it manually by adding 0 to each of the fields. You can also change your button's background color at the bottom by using this color picker. You can change the text color as well. There's also a hover tab at the bottom that lets you change the colors for the hover state. If we scroll down, we can see a secondary button tab with options to make these same changes for the secondary button. So now we can go all the way back to our main menu, and now we can go to menus. So we can see our different menu locations here. Let's go to the footer, and let's add the home page to the footer menu. Now I'll click on reorder to move home all the way to the top. Okay, so that's good. Now we can go all the way back and click on the publish button at the top. And once we're done publishing, we can close the customizer by clicking on the X. So we are done with the global configuration for our website, and now it's time to edit the page. So I'm going to click on the edit icon at the top of the page, and that should take us to the WordPress editor. So we are now in the editor, and here we have the preview of our page. If we take a look on the right-hand side, we have our page settings. If we click block, we won't have any options until we select a block. So let's select the section block. You can see some settings now, and that will change depending on the block you select. Now let's click on this icon at the top to open up the list view. And here we can see all of our different blocks, and that gives us a good idea of the structure of the website. So for example, in our section block, we have a column with a number of different blocks inside. And you can always rearrange blocks by simply dragging them to your desired position. So for example, I'm dragging the second section block all the way to the top. And if I scroll down, we'll see that we now have the hero at the bottom. So you can always move blocks around however you want. Let's get the hero back at the top by dragging this one under it. Okay, so we're good. You can also move blocks around by clicking on these up or down arrows, and that applies to any block regardless of whether or not it's nested. So here I am moving the section block using the up and down arrows, and we also have two sets of alignment options for the block, which we can see here. So we can align this block based on width or 3 different positions. If we click on our heading, we can see a list of different formatting options as well. You can also click on this icon to attach a link to any block. Just type your URL in this field. And if we click on this drop down arrow, we'll find some more formatting options. So if you want to add a new block to this page, all you need to do is select it first. You can also do that in the list view. Then click on the plus icon at the top and simply search for the block that you want to add. So as an example, I'll add a cover block below this one. And there it is. So to remove a block, all you need to do is click on the options icon on the blocks toolbar and then click on remove. So in this case, it will be remove cover. From the list view, we can simply click on the options icon and click the same thing, remove cover. Now let's customize our section block. So the first option under layout is columns. We can move this slider to add more columns. And I'll show you a better example of this using another section block. And in addition to this, we also have spacing options. So if I click on the spacing tab at the bottom, and there we can see the different padding values for each side of this section, 120 for top and bottom and 20 for left and right. And we also have margin values, which is basically the spacing on the outside of the element. In this case, it's this section. If I add 100 pixels of padding, you'll see that the section will shift downwards by 100 pixels. Now let's go ahead and remove this margin. We'll set this back to 0. And by the way, these settings can be adjusted across multiple devices. We can go into responsive mode and edit for each device. You can also configure your section structure. So for example, you can change your site's maximum content width. So you could have it as wide or narrow as you want. Let's change it back to 640. And you can also horizontally align your content with these options. You can set the minimum height for your section here. We have default, fit to screen, and custom, which lets you set a specific height by moving this slider, or you can simply enter a value in the field on the right hand side. I'll go back and set the height to default. So we are now done with our layout configurations. So now we can go to style. And here we have background settings first. If you want to change your background type, you have 3 different options. You can either choose a solid color, or you can choose an image background like the one we saw at first. Or if you want to, you can also select a gradient. And there are a number of different gradient palettes that we can use. If you want to change a gradient color, just click on the handle and you'll be able to use the color picker to choose your new color. You can also click anywhere on the gradient to add a new handle, and then you can pick a new color using the color picker. You can change the angle by rotating this knob, or you can change the type from linear to radial if you want to. So that's basically what you can do with backgrounds. Let's switch back to an image background and we'll click on Clear Image at the bottom. Let's choose Media Library. And now I'll just drag an image from my file manager. So let's use this one. Okay, and if the upload is complete but you're not seeing any change, you'll need to close the Media Library. I'll just click on the X. And let's click on Media Library again, and we should see our image. Here it is. Let's click Select. And now we can change the focal point of the image. Let's have it focus on the lady. I think it's good right here. Okay. And now I'll go to Background Settings, and let's change the background attachment from scroll to fixed. Let's keep background repeat as no repeat, and we'll also keep background size as cover. Next, we can choose a background overlay. Let's use a color from our palette. So here's what it looks like in yellow. And now we can adjust the opacity, so I'll move this slider to the left to decrease it. So we can check out green and adjust the opacity. And this is something you can always play around with until you get the perfect combination. So I think we can use a very dark color, maybe this one or the next one. And we can adjust the opacity to about 50. Okay, it's on 52. Let's just make this 50. So I think this combination is good. We also have CSS filters with some more adjustment options. So as an example, I'm adjusting the saturation of the overlay. So you can always play around with these options to see what works. And we can also select a blend mode for the background overlay from this list. We can add a border to our section, but first we'll need to enter a border width. I'll use 2 pixels. And now we can choose a custom color or one from our palette like this yellow. And here's the yellow border around the section. We can also use the border radius option to round the corners like this, and that's 100 pixels on all sides. We can also add a box shadow to our section, or maybe a shape divider. To add one, you'll need to select a location first, like bottom. Then you can choose a type from the list, and we can now see it at the bottom of the section. We can also pick a color for it, so here's off-white, which is basically our page color, and then we can just go on to customize the width and height. Now we have a border at the bottom. To remove it, just type in 0 under border width. And now I'll remove this shape divider as this was just an example of what you could do. To remove it, I'll select none under type. So now we can move this green section back down. And that's good. So we are done with the styling options for our section. And here's a demonstration of the fixed background. When we scroll, the image stays fixed to one point, and the text just moves on top of the image. And again, this could be found in background settings. Now let's begin editing the content in our blocks. So let's start with the first section. We'll begin by editing this heading, and we can either just click on it or we can click on this pencil icon at the top. Now click on select. And when you hover over a block, you'll see exactly where its boundary is. So it's easier to select a block using the select tool, but I'll switch back to edit and I'll click on the heading and let's highlight fitness gym. I'll replace this with yoga studio. So it's that simple. All you need to do is type in your text, and the same applies to the paragraph at the bottom. We can also change our heading color on the right hand side. You can either use your color palettes or you can select a custom color as well. Let's change it back to white. We can also move this slider to adjust the font size. This change can also be made across different devices if you go into responsive mode. Let's adjust the alignment as well for mobile. Let's go back to desktop. Now let's decrease the size of the text to about 60. So that's good. Let's move down to typography. So we already know how to work with these settings, and any change you make here will not be applied globally. They'll just be applied to that specific heading. So for this paragraph, I'll not make many changes, but maybe I'll change gym to something like studio. And maybe I'll change workout with us at the bottom to something like practice with us. And I'm just editing this content for demonstration purposes, but ideally, you should use your own content. We can also change the text color on the right. Here's the secondary color. And you can also set a background color. So that's something you can do if you want to. I'll set the background back to transparent, and let's change the paragraph back to white. So the typography settings for paragraphs are slightly different. So we have our formatting options in this menu. And if we go back, we can select a preset font size over here. And you can also click on settings to set a specific size. Let's make that 16. So that's good. Now we can start editing our button. So let's click on it. And in the toolbar at the top, we can see some alignment and formatting options. So for the button text, let's remove group. I'll just backspace this and let's type in class. Okay, that's good. Now we need to edit this link. So I'll click on the pencil icon on the side. And now I'll change groups to classes. So I'll just remove this and I'll type in classes. Once you're done, you can click on this icon to set the link. We also have the option to make this open in a new tab, but I'll leave this as default. If you want to, you can also go ahead and change your button style on the right-hand side. You can also change the width of your button by selecting one of these options here. But for our example, we can keep it as 50. And below this, we have color and typography options. And right under, we have an option to adjust the border radius. But I'll keep this shape square. So we are done with this button, and now we can move on to our next section. So I'll scroll down until we have it in the frame. Now let's go to the left, and we just want to collapse the first section. Let's open up the second one. And now we can see that this section has 2 columns versus the first one, which only had 1. And if we look on the right, we have an option to adjust the width of the column. And we can do this for each one. So I'll set this back to 50. I'll also demonstrate adding multiple columns now, since this is a better example. So let's go back and click on section. And from there, we can adjust the number of columns in our section. So if I make this 3, we now have a third column. So for example, we can add an additional image. So I'll click on image and media library. Let's add this one. Click select. So here's our image. And you'll also notice that each section now has the same size. So if we go to one, we can see that it's 33.33%. So let's remove the last image that we added. Let's go to options in the toolbar, then remove image. I'll also go back to section and I'll change the number of columns back to 2. So let's go ahead and edit the rest of our page. We'll start with this heading. It's called section overline. I'll just highlight this. I'll backspace and I'll type about us. We'll keep the same text style and we can move on to the next one, which is welcome to our gym. We'll change it to our tagline, which is yoga is our way of life. Now I want to capitalize this, so I'll click on the heading, then I'll click on the A, and under font transform, I'll click capitalize. So that should be better. It is. And I'll just lengthen this paragraph by highlighting some text, and I will just paste it at the end. So I'll just take this sentence and I'll paste it right here. But in a real life situation, you'd actually use some real text. So we'll now go ahead and edit this button. So we can change this text to something like check out our studio. So now we can edit the link. We'll remove this page at the end of the URL and we'll type in our-studio. Okay, so that looks good. Now we need to replace our image. So I'll click on the image on the right, and on the toolbar, we can set the alignment with this option. We can also set a link for the image. We can crop it as well. And we can add text directly to the image, or we can add a duotone filter. So I'll click on replace and let's open the media library. So I'll go ahead and get an image from my file manager and I'll drag it to the media library. And let's just wait for it to upload. Once it's done, we'll click on select at the bottom. And now we have just replaced our image. If you want, you can make it rounded, but I'll keep it as default. And we don't need to add any alt text. If you want, you can also change the image size. And below we have image dimensions where you can add custom values, or you can simply select a percentage below. Okay, so we are done with this section. So now we can move on to the next one. I'll just scroll down and we can start by replacing this section overline text with our own. Let's type benefits of yoga. Let's make the text yellow. Okay, that's good. And let's replace why workout here with something like why practice yoga. Okay, so we're good with the headings. Now we can move on to the icons. Now replacing an icon is really easy. Just click on it. And if you look on the right-hand side, you'll see an icon library and an icon picker at the bottom. So if you click on the icon picker, you can either choose or search for any icon. So to get my icon back, I'll just go ahead and search for Bolt in the search bar. So that's good. And we also have a color option for icons. So we can change the background color, icon color, and border color. So we can just make the icon yellow, and we can do the same for all of the other icons. All right, so we're good. And I'll keep the rest of the text the same. Now let's move to the next section, which is testimonials. And before we edit our headings, let's take a look at the block with the icon. And in case you're wondering, the part that says write your content will not be shown on the front end. And we can view the structure of the icon list on the left. We have an icon list block with 5 different icons, and these will be stacked horizontally. So now I'll start editing the headings. So I'll change the first one to testimonials. Let's go ahead and make this bold. So now we can go ahead and replace the next heading, which is the H2. We can say something like what our students have said. So that's good. And I'll also go ahead and capitalize the heading. Again, for paragraphs, we could just edit them. So I'll replace gym with studio, and I'll copy this to replace the other one with it. And if you have a real project, you would need real testimonials from your clients. So avoid using dummy text, as this could be seen as misleading. So you already know how to replace images. You just click on the image and click on replace. And make sure you pay attention to the width and height when replacing images. The text at the bottom is actually a heading, and by now you should know how to replace headings. So I'll not go ahead and replace these. They're just names, so they're good. And we can move down to the next part. So I'll just scroll down. This section, I can go ahead and remove this. So I'll just click on it, and I'll click on the options icon over on the right to remove it. Let's click remove section. Now we can scroll down again, and I'll remove this section as well. So options, then remove section. And then we can remove the next one as well. So let's get rid of that one. Same process, options, then remove. So that looks better. So for this section, we can make a couple of changes. We can change the background color and replace the images. So let's go to style, and under background color, I'll select a different one. Here's white and there's gray. I think white looks better, so we'll use it. Now let's replace the heading. So we're only replacing one word. So let's type yoga in action. And now we can replace the images, and I'll speed up this part since we already know how to do this. And at the end of this video, I'll leave a bonus section where I'll show you how to get free images for your project. And I'll show you how to install a free plugin called Optimal to optimize your images so that they don't slow down your website. So our gallery is done, and we can move on to the next section. Now we just need to edit this text. I'll start with the first column. Right now it says 8K people trained, but we can replace this with a lower number like 315. I'll say 315 plus. That's good. So now we can move to the next number, but first, let's change the color of this heading to yellow. And now we can replace the number. Let's say we have 420 square feet. I'll also change the heading at the bottom to yellow. And let's replace this 7 with a 10. So that would be 10 years of experience. And we'll also make this heading yellow. All right, so that's fine, but I'll add one more column. So I'll press Escape on my keyboard, and that's a shortcut for the select tool. We have 2 headings inside of the column, and we just want to select the column on its own. So once we have it selected, we need to click again to edit, then click Options, then Duplicate. So let's replace this 10 with a different number. We can say 12 or maybe 8. Let's say 8 amazing instructors. Okay, so I think that's good so far, and now we can move on to the next section. So this one is basically a contact section with 2 different columns. So there's a map, and on the left, we have a few headings, a paragraph description in the middle, and then some contact information. So you can just go ahead and replace this information with your own. And as an example, I'll replace this email address with a fictional one based on my domain. So I'll just format this text, and I'll type in info@dawnyogaclasses.com. And now we can move on to the map, which is just an image being used as a placeholder. And I'll show you how to replace this with an actual map. So I'll just tidy up these sections on the left. And now we can see an image block at the bottom. So we can go ahead and remove this. So right now we can add a new block by clicking on this icon. And you can go ahead and add a Google Maps block. but you need a Google Maps API key. And if you don't have one, you can check out the card on the screen. It links to a video where we show you exactly how to create your own. As an alternative, you can use Otter's Maps block, which does not require a Google Maps API key. So once we add this block, we can see the map instantly. So we can go ahead and enter a location in this field. I'll type in Madrid, Spain, and then I'll press enter. And now we can see that the map is centered in Madrid. So we have different configuration tabs here, but I'll just focus on markers at the bottom. I'll click add marker, then add title. And now we can enter our marker information. So let's scroll down and now I'll enter a title. Let's call this Dawn Yoga Studio or just Dawn Yoga. Let's add studio at the end. Okay, so Dawn Yoga Studio. We can see the name when we hover over the marker. And now we can also add a description. So I'll just type in our main location. So I'll just fix this capital M in the center. And now we can move the marker to the location of our studio. So let's pretend it's right here. And by the way, I'll leave links to detailed tutorials on how to use this block, the Google Maps block, and the section block that we have been using in the description. Now I'll make this block reusable by clicking on options. Then I'll click add to reusable blocks and we can just call it contact. Let's click save. So now we'll be able to reuse this block. And I'll also make the map reusable. So we can just call it map with location. And once we're done, we can click on the preview button at the top of the page. Let's preview in a new tab. So now we can see a full preview of our page with all of the changes that we made. And we have a slight issue with our footer, and this can be corrected easily. So let's go to customize at the top. Then we'll go to footer. And we can see that this is happening because the columns at the end aren't wide enough. So we are going to go to settings and we can just switch the layout to the one with the larger column at the end. All right, so we have now fixed our issue. We now have more horizontal space and we can click on publish on the left to save our settings. Let's close the customizer and let's scroll down. And now it's perfect. So once you're happy with the changes that you've made to your website, you can go back to the dashboard. So I'll just go ahead and close this tab first and I'll go back to the dashboard and I'll click on update, then save. All right, so on the left, I'll click on the view page link. And now we can move on to the next page, which is our studio. So we are going to make similar changes on this page. I'll start by clicking on edit page at the top. And once it loads right away, I'm going to change the page name from the gym to our studio. We can just copy this and we'll paste it on the hero image. Okay. So I think this section is a bit too short. We need to adjust the height. So let's go to the settings on the right and we're looking for a section structure and we'll set the custom height to 500. So now I'll go ahead and replace the background. So I'll just clear this image and I'll choose one from the gallery. That one is fine. I'll click select. And remember, you can also change the focal point of the image if you want to. You can add a background overlay, but I'll keep the one that we have. Let's scroll down to the next section. So we can see two headings here again, and we have a paragraph at the bottom. You can edit all of this text if you want to. If you want, you can also remove a heading, so it's all up to you. For demonstration purposes, I'll just replace some text. So the heading now says a place to practice yoga. So at the bottom, we have a YouTube block, and working with this is quite simple. So let's go to list view. And we'll click YouTube. Now in the toolbar, let's click on the pencil icon. So you just need to add your YouTube link here, then click embed. So it's that simple. Now I'll remove this video block by clicking on the options icon, then remove. So we just have this small section and you can always add any other block to this section. So maybe you want to add more text or maybe you want to add an image, just press enter, then click on the plus icon. Then you can add any block that you want. So essentially, I'm just replacing this video block with an image block. I think that looks good, so let's move on. So here we have another gallery and I'm just changing the background color and I'm replacing all of the images. And it's also a good idea to use images that have the same dimensions. So we are done with the gallery and we can keep this next section. You can always edit it if you want to. You already know how to edit icons and text. And I'll remove this section. And I don't think we need a testimonial here, so I'll remove that one as well. Wait, I need to select it first, then remove. Now we can move on to the contact section. We can hardly see this heading, so I'll make it yellow. And we can also remove this image as it's just a placeholder. Now remember we have a reusable block for this map, so we'll just click on it and we'll type in what we named our reusable block. So I think we named it map with location. Yes, here it is, map with location. So that's done. And I'll just replace this email address with the same one that we had before. So I think that's good. I think we can now go ahead and update this page, and now we can go ahead and view it. So this is how our studio page looks, and we're missing the map at the bottom, so I'll show you exactly how to fix that. If we go back to edit our page, all we need to do is scroll all the way down, then click on the map. We need to click on options and then convert to regular blocks. So now that it's a regular block, we can update our page, and then we'll click on view page on the left. Okay, now let's scroll all the way down and we can see our map again. Now let's edit our classes page. So I'll click on classes, then I'll click on edit page, and we just need to follow the same process. So we are going to replace groups with classes, and we'll make this section taller. Then we'll replace the background image with one of ours. And once that's done, we'll change the focal point. Now for the next part, I'll replace weights training with meditation. And for this example, I'll keep the rest of the text the same, but let's make a few changes to the button. Let's remove details, and we can say something like reserve your spot. Now for the link, we'll do something different. So we are going to add a scheduling link from Calendly to this button. I'll open a new tab and I'll click on Calendly. And I'm going to copy the link for this meditation session. Then I'll close the Calendly tab and I'll replace the default link with the Calendly one. Okay, so that's good. Now we have an image on the left that we need to replace, so I'll just go ahead and do that. I think we have a photo where two people were meditating. Yep, here it is. I'll click select. Now let's go ahead and preview our page to see what this is like. So under meditation, we'll click on reserve your spot. So basically somebody who clicks on there would be able to book a meditation session from Calendly. So now that we have confirmed that this works fine, we can close this. And we can repeat this process for the rest of the classes. I'll just be using dummy links for the others. And by the way, I'll be speeding up this part since we already know how to do this. So I'm just replacing the main headings and images, but in your case, you may want to replace every single detail. And instead of adding images one at a time like I'm doing, you can add all of your images to your gallery and then select each one as you go along. So now we're on the team section and all of these images could be replaced as well. At the bottom, we have the classes that they teach. So we could replace this with meditation and power flow and so on. We can replace their names and descriptions as well. And editing social media icons is really simple. You just need to type in the link, for example, facebook.com/whatever the name is. So you can do this if you want to, but for my example, I'll just remove this entire section. So this section is a weekly class schedule. I'm not going to need it, so I'll just go ahead and remove it as well. So I'll remove that one. And this one as well. Okay, so we have removed everything we did not want, and what we're left with is this FAQ section with an accordion block. And it's really simple to edit this. All you need to do is click and type. You can click on any heading, and on the right hand side, you can set it to initially open. It will look like this on the front end. I don't think I'll be keeping this section, so I'll just go ahead and remove it. And now for the final step on this page, I'll just add our contact reusable block at the bottom, and I'll also convert it into a regular block, and then I'll get a dark background for this section, and I'll change the heading to yellow, the heading color, and then I'll make all of the other text white. So we are done editing this page. Now we can scroll all the way to the top to make sure everything looks good, and then we can click on update and save. All right, let's view our page. So here it is, nice and simple. So I made the same mistake with this map block. I need to convert it into a regular block. So I'll go back and I'll scroll all the way down. I'll click on the map block and then I'll click on convert to regular blocks. And now it should be good. Let's click on update. Then view page on the left at the bottom. And here's our map. So now we can go ahead and edit the contact page. So I'll click on contact. And here we need to edit this hero section. And then I'll explain how to edit the form. So I'll edit the banner off screen, and then we can focus on the form. So working with this contact form is extremely straightforward. It's made up of different field blocks which we could search for and add just like any other block. We can find its customization options there. So this tab lets you customize the color of different parts of your form, like the label for example, or the help label or border and so on. And apart from that, we have button color, so you can change your button color here, and also success and error message colors. And you can also customize label styling as well as input styling. And these are all controls that we have covered, so you can just check it out yourself. So let's move on to form options. And first we have email subject, and this is the subject of the email that is sent when the form is submitted. So this should be something descriptive. Then we have from name, which is the name of the sender. So this could be your name, or maybe even your company name, or even admin. And email to lets you choose where to send the email apart from the admin. The CC and BCC fields let you send copies of the email to others, and the next one lets you configure a success message. The final option lets you add a redirection link. Now in this tab, you can test your SMTP status, and honestly that's a bit advanced, but I'll leave a link in the description to a video where you can learn more about SMTP. And if you don't like bots or spam, it's wise to turn this on, but you'll need to set up Google reCAPTCHA before using this feature. And finally, in this tab, you can integrate a marketing provider like MailChimp or Sendinblue. So now I'll just go ahead and click on the Save button at the bottom, and then I'll continue editing this page. The final step is to replace this map, so I'll go over to the section and I'll remove it. And then I'll add the reusable block with the map, which is map with location. And I'll convert that into regular blocks, not making this mistake again, and I'll make the alignment full width. Alright, so since we are officially done with this page, we can go ahead and click on the update button to save it. So here's our contact page, and we can just scroll down to make sure everything looks good. And we can go ahead and do the same thing with the home page, and that's just to make sure everything looks fine. So you just want to go through each page to make sure that nothing was left out. And you can also check for responsiveness, so just drag the edge of your window to resize it. And be sure to check the smallest possible size to test for mobile responsiveness. You should also ensure that you check the mobile menu. So just make sure it looks good and works properly. Let's go to our news page. And this is basically an archive page that stores a list of our news articles. And we only want to change the layout. So let's go to the customizer. And let's go to layout, then blog archive. And I'll select list under layout. Okay, so I think that's good. Now let's click on a post. And this is called a single post. We'll go to single post options and we'll change the header layout to cover. So if you want to, you can use these options here to customize your single post. I only want to change one thing here, and that's cover height. So I'll set that to 500 pixels. I think that's better. So now we can go back and let's publish our changes. Let's exit the customizer and let's go back to our dashboard. So now I'll show you how to work with posts. So let's hover over posts, then click on all posts. So these are all of our posts. To select a post, all you need to do is click on the checkbox next to it. If you want to delete one, just hover over it, then click on trash. And if we click on the checkbox next to title, we'll select all. Then we can go to bulk actions, then move to trash. And now if we click on apply, we'll delete all of our posts. And that deletion is not permanent. So if we were to go to trash on this page, we'll see all of the posts that we just deleted. If you want to, you can delete one post permanently. All you would need to do is select all of them, then go to bulk actions, then delete permanently, then apply. And now they're gone forever. To add a new post, click on add new at the top. And on the next page, we'll give our post a title. Let's call it test post. Now we can add any block that we want. We can just add it here, or we can click on this plus icon. So let's use an advanced heading. So for the heading, I'll type in my test post, and let's add a paragraph block below this. And I'll just paste in some dummy text from my clipboard. So you'll basically just be adding your post content. That could be text or a video, or maybe a combination of all of them. Now on the right hand side, we have post settings. So here you can configure your post visibility options. You can also choose when to publish your post. Right now it's set to post immediately. We can also make it stick to the top of the blog, and we can also mark it as pending review. And you can also select the author from this list. Now let's move down to categories. So categories lets you group and organize your post. You can click on this link to add a new category, and I'll call it yoga. Then I'll press enter. And now we can see it selected here. And if you want to, you can add multiple categories for your posts. So for example, I'll add a new one called Madrid Sessions, and they're now both selected by default. We can also add tags for our post by simply typing in a tag in this field. So for example, I'll add a tag called Morning Sessions, and I'll add a comma. Then I'll add a new tag called Yoga Sessions. So we have just added 2 tags to this post. And now we can go ahead and add a featured image. And this is basically the thumbnail that you see when browsing a post archive. So all you need to do is select a suitable image from your media library. So that's done. And you can add your own excerpt. If you don't, one will be created from your content. You can also allow comments, pingbacks, and trackbacks. And these are basically notifications you'll get when other sites link your content. So once you are happy with your post, you can go ahead and click on Publish at the top. Once it has published, we can go ahead and view it. So here's the featured image, the content, and these are our tags. So we are done with posts. Now let's take a look at pages. We'll hover over pages and click on all pages. And here we can see all of our pages. Let's go ahead and delete the 2 that we are not using, and that's single group and sample page. So now we can go to bulk actions and move these 2 pages to the trash. So we are going to click on add new to create a new page. And now we just want to give the page a name like test page. And by default, we have this section block, which we can keep or we can remove it. If you decide to keep it, all you need to do is select a layout and then start building your page with Gutenberg blocks. You can build your page with any block that you want. For example, a heading or maybe even an image block or a video block. It's definitely up to you. And if you don't want to build your page from scratch, you can always go to the patterns library and select a set of patterns that you like. And from there, you can decide to edit them however you want, just like we have been doing in this video. And then once you're done, all you need to do is click on the publish button at the top. So it's up to you to decide how to go about building your page. All right, so I'm going to show you guys how you can go ahead and create your own logo. You can either use the free version of an online graphic design tool called canva.com to build your logo, or you can also use a website called logomaker.com. Let's click on Start My Design. And from this canvas, you just want to go to the search bar at the top, and then you can search for a graphic to use for your logo. Let's use this pizza graphic. So you can use this color picker on the right-hand side to change the color of your graphic. Click on the T on the left to add some text, and we can call this Sarah's Pizza, for example. This font is called Railway, but we can always change it at the top. We can select any font that we want. And we also have options here to format the text. You can make it larger by dragging the handle at the edge. And then we can just go ahead and fine-tune its positioning. And then we can change the color of the text. Once you're done, you can go ahead and click on the save icon at the top. And on this page, you just want to click on download low-resolution PNG file. Accept the terms, then click download. And you can use the same method to create your site icon. You just have to leave out the text. And to get free images for your website, you can go to a site called unsplash.com. And all you need to do is type in your keywords in this search bar. So if I search for yoga, for example, we'll see that we have a number of different images. All you need to do is click on an image and click on download free at the top. And there you'll be able to select the size. And depending on the size that you choose, you may need to optimize your image. And I'll show you how to do this at the end using a free plugin. You can also go to a website called pexels.com to get free images. Once you're on the website, you can type in a keyword in the search box. So for example, we'll type in yoga studio, and then we'll find a list of high quality photos. Once you find the one that you want, you could just click on it. And these photos are absolutely free to use. If you click on this free to use badge, you can see exactly what's allowed and what is not allowed. So there are also rules you need to follow when using stock photos. So if you want to download the photo, just click on the down arrow, then select a size from this list. And then once you're done, click on download selected size. And as promised, I'll show you exactly how you can optimize your images, as some images you may download may be too big, so they could potentially slow down your website. You just need to go back to your dashboard. And once you're there, hover over plugins on the left-hand side and click on add new. And once you're on this page, go to the search bar and type in optimal. So it's the first result on this page. You just want to click on install now. And once it's done, click on activate. Okay, so here you can create a new account if you don't have one yet. You'll just need to click on create and connect your account. I'll click on I already have an API key since I'm an existing user. So I'll just add my API key to this field and I'll click connect to Optimal. So this connection process could take up to about 2 minutes, but I'll just speed up this part. And once it's done connecting, you'll see a message saying that image optimization is currently running. So everything will be handled for you automatically. In the meantime, let's go to the settings tab. And there we have some options that we don't even need to touch. We need both of these options on. And if we click on advanced, we'll see some settings for experts, but we don't need to configure this since the default configuration is fine. So when we go back to our dashboard, we'll see that all of our images are now optimized. And we can also see the compression percentage for each. All right, so that was the entire process of creating a website. I hope you found this video helpful. If it was, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, and subscribe to see more videos like this one. Thank you for watching and see you next time.